everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we're joined by actor, producer, father, Superman himself. You know him, Dean Cain. Dean, we're so excited to get you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Look, I think we'll start at the beginning. I first saw you as Superman. I just heard that, I just kind of realized how long ago that really was. You just told me that you have a 21-year-old son or son that's about to turn 21. But tell me a little bit about that, kind of how you started in television. Did you know you wanted to do it? And playing Superman really gave you kind of a spotlight. Everybody kind of knew who you were after that.
Yeah, that was a weird transition. But so I grew up in Malibu, California. So I grew up around kids who became very famous very young. And my father was a film director. I was a football player and a student and an athlete, and that's all I wanted to do. Fortunately, I was good at those things, and I was able to go to Princeton University. I was an All-American football player there. Then I went on to play for about 15 minutes with the Buffalo Bills. Then I got injured, and I had to get a real job. Meanwhile, my dad had been directing movies like Young Guns. That was Then, This Is Now, The Principal. So a lot of these kids that I grew up with, Sean Penn, Chris Penn, Rob Lowe, Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, Holly Robinson, all these kids were making their mark in the film industry. At Princeton, all those kids are running around in the summertime, and their internships are, investment banking and 80 hours a week on Wall Street in New York City summer heat. And I'm like, this is terrible. This sucks. Now, some of those guys are billionaires, so maybe they made the right choice. I don't know. But I thought it was a lot more fun to be on film sets. It's where I grew up. And I watched a lot of my friends achieve a lot of fame and fortune and make a lot of mistakes. They all did. And they were young. I mean, I was a young person. Of course, you can make those mistakes. And some of them have continued, but some of them have sort of changed their ways. But it was a very natural progression for me to go into that world because I was around it all the time. I grew up around it, so I was very exposed to it. I didn't think it was anything special. I did every job on set growing up. I mean, you name it, I've done the job. Grip, lighting, gaffing. I'm not a gaffer, but I've done every job on PA and things. So I grew up in that business. And when professional football was over and school was over, which all happened very quickly, suddenly I had to find a job. And so I was right back at square one. So I started looking toward acting. And my dad was very clear on acting. He wanted me to be a writer because as a writer, nobody judges you. You have anonymity. And as a parent, you really want to guard your kids. I completely understand that. So his advice to me as an actor was, if I said I wanted to act, it was don't do it.
Oh, no.
And obviously I didn't listen to him. But I understand what he meant, which was unless you're dying to do it, unless it's the only thing you can think about doing, find something else to do because it's a really tough road. Fortunately for me, a few years after I got hurt playing football, I was able to get cast as Superman, which was incredible. But even I, who had been around it all the time, and my college girlfriend was Brooke Shields, and I had seen all of the things she had gone through.
Oh my gosh, we're learning so much here, Dean. At least I am. Wow.
Well, I'd seen all the things she had gone through with fame and people's expectations of her, so much so that she was nice to a fault. And then I'd seen the other side of the coin, friends of mine like Sean Penn, who might not be nice to a fault. To me, he's family. Although we disagree politically 100%, he's still family to me. And his brother and I
are still friends?
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And by the way, kudos to you guys, both of you, for being able to stay friends despite your differences in politics, because that is a very rare thing these days. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's pretty incredible too.
It's so odd that it's rare. It shouldn't be rare. It's sad. It's sad that it's rare. I am extremely tolerant of other people's views unless they're going to harm somebody, which we'll get into later. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But I'll have conversations with anybody and have disagreements and still like them as people and be friends. And we've lost that in this country.
We have.
Because people have gone, there's the far right makes a lot of noise, the far left makes a lot of noise, but that accounts for about 20% of the people. And 80% of us are somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where we should be and still should have conversations.
Gosh, well, you know what? I too have friends. I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised to learn this. I too have friends who disagree with me politically. Some of them I have never asked about their political views. I just have a hunch. I see some of the things that they post. Some of them have been very open with me. And unfortunately, some of them really just said, well, I'm no longer going to be friends with you, which is their loss, I'll say.
Yes.
But, you know, it's funny when you were talking about your dad warning you not to get into acting. It's interesting because what you were saying about acting is almost what I would say to people about politics. Unless you absolutely are dying to do it, I sadly have seen firsthand via my father-in-law and our entire family how terrible politics can truly be. I mean, look, unless you are super passionate about it and you can handle it, it is a very tough industry. It's a very tough field to work in or you know, be active in any way. But thank goodness we do have good people like Donald Trump who are willing to take the slings and arrows and go head first into it, because we have to continue to fight for our country. Before we get off on other things, I want to ask about this because I know you played football at Princeton. How many Princeton football players go on to play for the Buffalo Bills or for any professional team?
It's not that common.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more common. Off my squad in college, at least 5 or 6 of us did.
Wow.
So it's not that special, I guess, in that sense. Jason Garrett was my quarterback in college. He was also the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for, you know, until last year. So for like 9 seasons straight ahead, and until then, now he's the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. Both of his brothers went to the NFL. There's a number of kids in the NFL right now, 6 or 7 of them. I think 4 or 5 from Princeton, a lot from the Ivy League, but it's a rarer situation, but it's becoming less rare. I was on a Zoom call with my head coach at Princeton, who was a sophomore when I was a senior, Bobby Serace, and Steve Verbit, who was also my coach when I was at Princeton, came in when I was a sophomore. And he's the longest serving coach of any type to ever stay. I think he's been there forever. That's because I graduated forever ago, but he's been there forever. And these guys, I was talking to these guys, and they had a weird season because the Ivy League killed their season, the whole season last year because of COVID, which is unfortunate. Yeah. But they have about 6 or 7 guys at least that they think have NFL potentials on this squad.
Wow.
So it's amazing to see that, and I think it's becoming less. It's just hard because we don't have scholarships. So anybody in the Ivy League, you don't have a scholarship opportunity for athletics. And anybody who tells you their kid got a athletic scholarship to the Ivy League is lying. Because since 1953, that's been the pride of the Ivy League, is no athletic scholarship. So they have to compete, and colleges are expensive and getting more expensive because of federal subsidies. But I want to get at guaranteeing those loans, those student loans, it just drives the price up. And so these kids have to make a choice between going to Princeton and getting this incredible education and rubbing elbows with these people who are going to be world leaders, or, you know, taking a scholarship to Cal Berkeley, which is what I was going to do. But I ended up choosing Princeton. And it's amazing who you meet, you know. And when I was at Princeton when I got there as a freshman, I mean, it was, you know, Jeff Bezos was there, Michelle Obama was there. I didn't know either one of them. I don't agree with either one of their politics either, but it would have been nice to, you know, I'd go back we go back to reunions and things all the time. But the people that you're around at that school is amazing. So when I'm trying to recruit kids for Princeton or talk to them about Princeton, I want to encourage them. But, you know, don't make a 4-year decision, make a lifetime decision. Because
what an accomplishment to go to Princeton, to go to such a renowned school like that, an Ivy League school, and be a star football player and go on from that. That's good stuff. I mean, I'm sure, look, if I could sign up for that, I would in a heartbeat, but it sounds like you guys
might be a little rough.
Yeah, I might be a little tough right now. I mean, I'm past my prime in football, obviously.
You and I both.
Yeah, well, but by the way, Dean, I have to tell you something. I didn't know truly how old you were, that you had a 21-year-old son. You look great. Do you work out? What are you doing now? You're still into fitness, I assume.
I'm very, very active. I mean, I can't play football because it's a little rough, but I'm very, very active. I love to be at home and on a schedule, like a routine, and I haven't done that forever, but COVID has provided me a really nice excuse for it, and I dig it. I like being home. So for me, I live right next door to Pepperdine University. I've been training a lot boxing, which has been great fun. That's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to. I don't like just hitting the gym and working out. It bores the heck out of me. So I've been doing a lot of boxing, which has been great fun lately.
I did boxing this morning, actually.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a lot better workout than I ever thought. And I do triathlons and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'll come out and box with you anytime.
All right.
So you still live in California, obviously. I have to ask you about this because I last week went out to California to visit one of my best friends. He lives in LA. I wanted to go for a run while I was there, and he lives just outside of downtown LA. Dean, I got to tell you something. I was shocked. I wanted to go for, like an hour-long run. It was really hard for me to find anywhere where it wasn't literally just streets littered with tents, with homeless people, with it being totally sketchy. And I visited him years ago. I don't ever remember it being like that. What the heck is going on out there in California?
It's poor leadership and and bad policies.
Yeah.
I know Eric Garcetti. He's a friendly guy. I like talking to him. He's a nice guy. I've never met Gavin Newsom, but I think both of them are doing terrible jobs. Their policies are awful. There shouldn't be this number of homeless. You see it all over Los Angeles. Now, I live in Malibu. We don't see it that much here, but I think the policies have encouraged it, allowed it, and it's a problem. It's a real problem. I mean, California is such a beautiful state. The weather is so amazing. It's massive, but mismanagement and poor policies is driving it into the ground. Our tax policies are awful. I mean, we're recalling Gavin Newsom. I think that's great. I hope that vote goes through. That's a guy who's just, born in politics, is a politician through and through, which is the last thing I like. Right. I like non-politicians coming in because I think when you have someone who is, even like Garcetti. I mean, his dad was formerly mayor of LA. I mean, when you're doing that, I don't like that. I don't like your political class. I think, coming in and doing something as your father-in-law did is amazing. And I love that. And people have tried to get me to run for governor here in California. And I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's
precisely I don't want to do it is maybe the reason that I should do it, because I don't want to be a politician. I don't want that. For me, it's not prestige to go, oh, hey, I'm the governor. I would be a responsibility that I have to serve the people of my state and try to make the state better. And I know I would fight those entrenched politicians who were there in Sacramento for us, a Democratic supermajority with poor policies, all these crazy policies that are, I'm all for being compassionate and for trying to help people, give them a hand up, not a hand out. And I think there's a big difference in that. And I think our policies here in California have driven that whole system, and it's a self-fulfilling system, and it perpetuates itself, where people start to live off the government dole, and they're allowed. We got George Gascon in here letting criminals out left, right, and center. I mean, we're in for a rough ride here in California, unfortunately, because we have really bad policies and bad politicians.
It's so sad because what you just said about California is so accurate. Every time I visit California, I think to myself, what an incredible state. I mean, just the wildlife there, the trees, the scenery, it's really unlike anywhere else in the country. And it's so beautiful and such a great quality of life in so many places. Great weather, as you're saying, but it's really sad to see what has happened to such a beautiful state. And, I know that people are leaving California in droves. I think it's the first time that, you will have fewer people in California year after year than any time in history. People have actually left in such large numbers that you've lost congressional seats over it now. It's sort of crazy to think about, but maybe we should take that as a country and look at it and say, what policies are causing people to leave California? Are those same policies, things that we should be thinking about as a country and staying away from? And then you've got a president like Joe Biden in the White House and the far left radicals pushing his agenda forward. It's very worrisome, I think, to a lot of people to think about the future of our country, and sad to see what's happening in California. Do you think that if you get the right governor in, Dean, you guys can turn things around there?
I'm an optimist, so I like to say yes. I hope that's the case. However, that Democratic supermajority and these entrenched politicians and these special interest groups here in California are very entrenched. They really will go down fighting because that's their livelihood. But I think if people are aware enough and start to really pay attention enough, and if we get the right leaders in, we could make a comeback. I like to think of politics as a sort of a pendulum swinging back and forth. And we've gone way, way, way to this side. We got to bring it back somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where we'll be able to sort of save the state. But if we continue on this trajectory, it's a real problem. I mean, the tax situation is such a joke. And then they start talking about taxing more, taxing 10% of your wealth, even if you leave California.
Oh, my God. Well, I live in New York. They're doing the same things here. It's terrible.
Because everyone's leaving New York because of terrible policies.
Absolutely.
I don't want to start with your New York City mayor or your New York governor because, woo.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're as
I
bad as
haven't
ours.
I haven't lived in New Eric and I used to live in the city, and we haven't lived there in over a year because who wants to live in New York City right now? It is horrific. I don't want to raise my kids there. I don't want to be around that. It's terrible. I have to ask you, Dean, though, because you are a bit of an anomaly in the entertainment industry in Hollywood. Most people are very far left, as you're talking about. So many of your friends are. And those that are not, those that are maybe more moderate or lean slightly right, do not talk about it. So what made you decide that you wanted to come out and be so vocal about your politics? Have you always been interested in politics?
I think there's a saying, you may not be interested in politics, but I promise you politics is interested in you.
Yeah.
Because everything that happens will affect you. When I started paying taxes, you start paying more attention. You're like, wait a minute, where's all my money going? What policies are going on here? And you look at the U.S. postal system run by the government, and it's terrible. But then somebody comes along, creates FedEx and UPS, and they make a ton of money and get things done faster and quicker. And you go, wait a minute, that's competition. That's capitalism. That's meritocracy. Okay, that helps everybody. That you see the difference. And so I started seeing a lot of that, and my views really haven't changed. My value system hasn't changed since I was young. They always joke about, if you're not a Democrat when you're young and you're not a Republican when you're older, or a liberal versus conservative, then you have no heart. You obviously everyone thinks that everything's wonderful when you're young. You're like, oh, everybody should have this, that, the other thing. But then when you get older and you realize how much a centralized government is just thievery. And unbelievable, the power that like a Nancy Pelosi who's been there forever has no concept of what a regular person is going through in California, in San Francisco, the pigsty that is San Francisco. Now what's happened there, which is a gorgeous city as well, with lots of lovely people, but it's just out of control. And so you realize that these people are just sucking off the system and screwing the little guy all the time. And you go, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I would start to speak up bit by bit, piece by piece. I'm a football player. That's a meritocracy. If you're good, you're going to play. Nobody cares what color you are, how tall you are, how short you are, what your weight is. It only how it affects how you play. And that's what I loved about football. And I think it's the same in life. I think, in politics, it certainly isn't the case, but you see how it affects everybody. And so I had to start speaking my mind a little bit. Plus, you listen to some of the stuff on set and what the people are saying, and it's shocking to me because I travel the world. I've been everywhere. Israel, Jordan, Australia, Africa. I've been everywhere. I've spent a lot of time in a lot of these places. Eastern Europe. I've just been Russia. You name it. I've been everywhere, almost everywhere. China, etc. And I see what things are like with different governments and different people. And so when I speak about these things, I speak about them from experience. And I see things happening here. You look at Venezuela and God bless Sean Penn, but he's down there with Hugo Chavez. Does he see what happened there? I mean, it's insane, and people starving and those sorts of things. It's insanity. So it's bad policies. I had to speak up, speak my mind. I know it's not popular. If I were a young actor, I probably wouldn't have, because it's the vitriol and the anger and the cancel culture, which is so ridiculous because cancel culture eats everyone. No one's safe from it. You unleash that beast and you're all going to fall. Mm-hmm. And you see it coming around. I'm not going to say it's delicious, but I'm not surprised.
It's sadly satisfying to see it come back around for some people. We will say that for sure. By the way, you say it's not popular, Dean, but I have to tell you, I think more than half of America truly feels the same way that you do, that I do. I think people are terrified to speak up right now. There are so many people that just, are worried about it being canceled, as you're just talking about, losing their job or having an issue with their kids in school or whatever it might be. I personally know people who are moving to Florida from New York, several different families, because, their kids are in middle school or high school, and their kids have conservative values and are, big fans of my father-in-law. And because of that, they are bullied out of control in school. They are having a really hard time. Their teachers are giving them a hard time. I mean, so I think the fact that we have someone like you who is willing to speak up and speak out, who is still a part of, Hollywood and the industry and all of it, is fantastic. Do you feel like you've been damaged by it in any way with your acting and what you do?
I haven't seen it firsthand, but I'm 100% positive. I mean, I hear it quietly through the grapevine of, agents and managers and things of that nature. But I've already achieved a certain level of success, so you know, I can't be quote canceled all the way. Yes, I'm sure it has affected me, but I could never live with myself and look myself in the eye or in the mirror, say without having spoken up. I would just look at myself and think, what a coward you are, what a sheep, what a lemming, because I know when I see something is wrong, I want to call it out. People talk about, and I said it before. One time I said, I couldn't say truth as Superman, character I played. I couldn't say it. I never did say it on the show, truth, justice, in the American way. It's on my Twitter bio. It's on my thing. That's what I believe. And I believe because of those American values are incredible. And people are trying to muddy that water. And I won't let that happen. And not on my watch, if you will. I will speak up. But, it's the kind of thing where I couldn't look myself in the eye if I didn't say anything. And there's a lot of resistance in Hollywood. And some people they can't even discuss it without getting completely emotional and off the rails. I can sit and talk about why I think this policy works versus that policy, especially with President Trump, where people will just lose their mind. And I go, hold on. What policy is that you disagree with? Oh, but he just tweets the meanest things. I'm like, what policy do you disagree with?
They can't tell you, Dean. They have no idea. The problem is, and we're seeing it come full circle right now, with what we've seen happen with the origins of COVID, where now you have people saying, remember when we said that it was a conspiracy theory that Donald Trump said, a year ago, that this probably originated in the Wuhan lab, that this was probably a man-made virus? Well, all of these people were saying you were a lunatic if you were spreading this sort of information, that it was misinformation. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all putting the warnings on your tweets and your posts, if you even subscribe to some thought like that. Now we're seeing Donald Trump was right, but it's so scary. And I think it's so dangerous, too, to see that whenever people are so against one person that he can be wrong, he has to be wrong under all circumstances. He can never be right. I mean, that's a really dangerous place to be. And gosh, I don't know. I don't know that you keep a country together if everyone continues to think this way on one side of the aisle. And by the way, the people that largely control the mainstream media agree with that stance. It is a really scary place to be.
It is scary, but I think at the same time, there are a number of people and voices that are loud, like yours, that are getting out there, and people are listening and paying attention. And I will certainly keep, trying to amplify my own voice when I see injustice or wrongs. I've never seen a single person in my lifetime ridiculed and attacked more than President Trump in my lifetime.
Yep.
Did he bring some of it on with some of his tweets? That's who he is. He doesn't, that's his personality. He'll say some things. Does that bother me? No, personally, no, not at all. You look at the way, President Biden is leading now. It's feckless. It really is. It's without any bite. He seems old and he seems frail. And the second he got in office, suddenly we've got all kinds of border problems again. Suddenly there's war in the Middle East again. Suddenly, everything is kicking up. That was a huge problem going into 2020, going into 2016, that suddenly was never dealt with anymore. It was suddenly gone and handled. And it's unfortunate. And I said, I keep saying caveat emptor, buyer beware, because the people bought this. If you voted for this, you bought this.
Dean, the most popular president in the history of America, 81 million votes. So, I mean, here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He was so inspiring to people throughout the course of the 2020 campaign cycle, 81 million votes. So, congratulations to 81 million Americans.
Well, now
I say that very facetiously, obviously.
Of course, but you look at now at the Senate Bill 1. They're trying to pass this federal takeover of elections. This is really scary stuff, and it should not be allowed. And if your voice is your vote, and if that is taken away, or if any way that's compromised, any election fraud is horrible. If you're taking away my vote, people have fought and died for that, and will fight and die for that again. You can't mess with that, and they're messing with that in a bad way. That is really frightening, and people need to wake up and start getting rid of some of these politicians who are pushing these power grabs, because it's horrific. I think they will.
I do too. I think that 2022, even people who thought that they were really going to stay Democrats, look. Here's the bottom line: is if you can see in the past 2 weeks or so what has happened between Palestine and Israel, and the way that woke celebrities have used their voices to support a terrorist organization, Hamas, and because of that, you see the anti-Semitic, like, horrific attacks that we've seen across this country. I mean, make no mistake about it, all of these folks on the left who are tweeting hateful things towards Israel, Dean, I can't think of anything other than it being anti-Semitism in America. But look, we are seeing, I think, people every day that see this sort of thing and they're like, wait a minute, what is going on here? I thought I was a Democrat, but if we have Democrats in Congress who are still saying hateful things about Israel, who seem to be very anti-Semitic, we can't subscribe to this. We can't vote for this. So 22 will be a very interesting year, I think. I really hope that people are paying attention and take this really seriously.
Yeah, I would love to see a Republican landslide in 2022, shake up the whole system again. I think it needs a big time shake and drop a lot of the old leaves off the tree.
Yes.
Because a lot of them are just barely hanging on there. And I think you're right. And something like this, I just did a documentary called Hate Among Us, which dealt with the rise. And we finished this last year. We won an Emmy for it, which is great. So I'm an Emmy-winning producer.
Oh, congrats.
Which is nice. I got to put that in my bio. But the thing it dealt with is the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe and here in the United States.
Wow.
And this was happening, 2 years ago. It was happening in a bad way in New York City and places like that. And then you'd see, in San Diego and just the weirdest places you were seeing this happen all through France and Europe. And we made a film about, hate, it's called Hate Among Us, and it dealt with that rise. And it's very timely again to watch this happen. And I read something yesterday about, I think Golda Meir had said this back when she was the prime minister of Israel. She said, we have a secret weapon in Israel, and that is that we have nowhere else to go.
Right.
So we're not going anywhere. And, when people are talking about like a response that has to be proportional, for me, that's insane. If you shoot a missile at me and my family, I'm going to wipe you out.
Yep, exactly.
Completely. There's no chance. You're coming after my family, my kids, my safety and well-being. It's on, and you're gone.
Yeah, good luck to you.
That's exactly. I mean, and then so people going, Israel has to have this proportional response. The whole Gaza situation is ridiculous, and I don't want to get into too much what I would want to do, because I might hackle some feathers. But security is number one, and you have to take care of your people. And they're surrounded on all sides by not surrounded, but they are in an area where they're having real problem. And the Abraham Accords were a great step out. Things were starting to happen, and everything went back to square one, and that's terrible under this.
And what was the one thing that changed? Putting Joe Biden in the White House. Look at that. Isn't it interesting? And here, look, I just found out that you and Andrew Cuomo have something in common, both Emmy winners. So look at that. If you ever have dinner together, you'll have a lot to talk about, Dean. I think that's a great thing to
talk about things.
Yeah. By the way, absolutely. And I would be happy to have dinner with anyone. People that I strongly disagree with, I could have a very cordial dinner. I don't think people all across the country could say that, but I'm happy to deal with anybody and just talk my truth. Before I let you go, Dean, I try to ask everybody this on this show. Tell me what you think is the best part of America and what you think the biggest threat is to the future of our country.
I think the best part of America is liberty, freedom. We were founded on that, not the 1619 Project, which I find to be baloney. We were founded on freedom and the idea of liberty and freedom. And that's that spirit. For those who have tasted that freedom, can never be beaten down. It can never disappear. I was in a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries and things when communism fell just after, and I could see the dullness in everyone's eyes, that lack of hope, that lack
Mhm.
of optimism, because it was beaten out of them. In America, we have it, and people flock here in droves because we have that freedom and we have that upward mobility. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what color your skin is. If you come over and you invent the zipper, you're going to do really well in life, and everyone's going to prosper as a result. And if you work hard, you can make something. I know it seems like, oh, people are like, oh no, you can't. System is against you. Well, who? There's my answer for what's the problem is the system, and the system is the politicians who are trying to centralize power and centralize the system is our biggest threat to our country. And I think that's a real problem. And I'm hoping to God that the pendulum swings the other way, and a lot of those folks are kicked out of office because they don't do anything. The people don't understand. Like I try to explain to my son when he was younger, like the government doesn't make money.
Right.
We're like Joe
We
Biden's
give
like,
them money, they spend
yes.
it.
And they're like, I put the most money into this and blah blah. It's like you didn't put any money into anything. That's our money.
Right.
You don't make money as government people. You're not being gracious with our money. It's our money. You're putting it towards things, and your name shouldn't be on it. You know, that drives me nuts. Even when I see in council people names on like a park, this so and so's park. No, it isn't.
No, it's my park.
Yeah, it's our park. It's the people's park because we all paid for it. You government people don't pay for anything. You just sit there and go, oh, this should go here. And I've seen them, and I've seen that in action, and it's disgusting. You've seen it 100 times over, a million times over what I've seen. So the fact that you're still optimistic makes me very happy.
Well, good. You have to remain optimistic. I mean, my gosh, sometimes it feels like that's all we have. Now, look, I know people want to know, where can they see you? You're always working on things. What are you doing right now? Where can people see you next, Dean?
Well, they can reach me on Twitter at Real Dean Cain. At Instagram, I'm at Deuces 1966. I can explain that, but it's not worth it. And I'm about to start a film called Little Angels. I wrote it, I'm producing it, directing it, starring in it. That starts in about 10 days here in LA. So we're in pre-production right now, casting, pre-production. It's the first film that I'm going to direct. I've written a ton, but this is my first one I'm going to direct and star in. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a Mighty Ducks kind of a story, which deals with, it's got great values in it. And I mean, you got a guy who isn't very, a character who isn't very polished and isn't very PC. He gets in trouble and some things happen. And so I think it's a real good feel-good movie, and it's a lot of fun. And of course I play the guy who isn't very PC, who who gets in trouble and then sort of grows as time goes on. But it's a lot of fun, and hopefully it'll be a big success.
Oh, well, we're excited to see you. We will continue to follow everything you're doing. If you don't follow Dean on his social media outlets, I love all the photos of your dogs. How many dogs do you have, Dean?
We have 4 now.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, it's more than I anticipated, but
tremendous. Well, I would have about 50 if my husband wouldn't fully divorce me, but we'll get there soon. So I love following you. You have great posts you do. I see you, like you said, all over the world. People ice skating in Russia. You're all over the place. So make sure you go follow Dean, and we'll always keep up with what you're doing. And look, keep speaking the truth. Keep speaking out. I think you inspire a lot of people, and you give people hope, and you give people courage probably on their own to speak out when they otherwise wouldn't. So we want to say thank you for that. Dean Cain, thank you for joining us on The Right View today. And to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you as always. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.